Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tom here, and today I'm going to bring you a little guide on how to deal with UNIDs. So, as you can see, just around here I have one of each unit and two of the ones that I know are the worst units. Now you don't need to do this. I'll come on to how to run through the units if you are one of these people who does struggle to understand them. But there are a lot of common scams that people use. Not exactly a scam, but a way they're going to make money off you when really the money should be all yours. So, 3 common scams. Firstly, is giving you these. Okay, if you ever get a trade, see someone selling 100 units 1k each, and you see people buying units 2k each, don't buy the units because they're most likely selling these 3 here, which are Tarim, Marantil, and Guam. Now these 3 units are very, very cheap. They're a lot less than a k each, and of course if you were to clean them, you're going to make a loss. So at best, you're going to really struggle to sell these back, and to be honest, it's most likely going to be a waste of time. So do not buy these where you can. The next common scam is people buying 1k each, and what they're going to do is look for people trading one of 2 ways. The first of the ways is trading a mass amount of units, and they're going to be looking for at least 6 or 7 stacks, but generally they're going to be looking for 11 or 12 stacks of units. And what I mean by a stack is a full note. So as you can see here, I've got 4, 8 and 12 stacks of units. If someone was to trade me 12, I know that only 3 of those stacks can be these worst units, and most likely they're going to be the bigger stacks because these are the more common hurt. Of course, when they are trading these and you are trying to buy, if there is a hell of a lot of those ones, we obviously want to avoid the trade, but I'll come on to that in a second. Okay, so we're going to move on to the first of scams, and this is where people start offering a lot of herbs. Now, in this trade you notice he only has 4 stacks of herbs, and I'm offering 800 each for the herb. That's just a ballpark price so I can make this guide. But since there are only 4 stacks of herbs, at best one of those herbs is going to be good. And at a complete guess, I would say one is Cadentine, which is also a cheap herb, and the other 3 are Marantil, Guam, and Taramit. Not necessarily in that order, but this is one of the trades to avoid. So if you ever see anyone trading a small amount of noted herbs, do this and end it. Okay? Don't get involved with it when they have a lot of weak herbs. Okay, now here we have a very different example, and this is where he has a lot of different stacks of units. Now once again we need to be thinking about what these units are going to be. So 141, 87 and 70 are all going to be common herbs. Now this person, I would say, understands it by the way he's pricing. So realistically I think he has taken Ranars and Snapdragons out, which are these remaining 2 slots. This leaves us with Cadentine, a lot of lower herbs. Okay, some are worth more than the 800 each we're paying, but because there are so many of this lower herb, it's not necessarily worth it. So, at this point, what you want to try and do is get him to remove the 141, the 87, and the 70. By doing this, what we force him to do is remove the lower herbs, and this means we're going to only be getting better herbs. So, take out the biggest. Now you cannot expect people to do this. Not a lot of people will. But obviously if we get him to move out, there's a lot of money to be made here. Now because I'm working more on the end of the scammer's position, he is the person we're classifying as a scammer. And in this case I wouldn't say he is, because he's clearly a friendly person. He's going to remove these bigger stacks. But if this was someone trying to get away from you, especially as a buyer like I'm doing now, I am going to be ripping this person off because I'm only paying for the good herbs. He is removing the weaker herbs, and this means I'm going to be making a profit. Okay, just before we move on to the next section, which is how to get units individually. So if we are only interested, for example, in Ranars, are only interested in the very high herbs, particularly if we're training herb law, which personally I've done a lot of. Not everyone has, but eventually most people will get onto it, and it's well worth understanding what we're doing. Now this is where I move on to a tidy bank. It's very important to know what units we've got. So in this case I've got no Torstal unit, but really there are not a great deal amount of Torstals get traded, and to be honest in 07 they're not that useful. But we then know, by the way the bank's set up, that this is Toflax. This is a reasonable herb, about 1.2k, 1.3k. It's more than I'm going to be paying, I may as well take it out. Next we have Dwarfweed, around 4k, well worth taking out again, and Lantime, not so good. This is worth generally around on the 1k mark. It does go up and down a little, but it's not a great profit, so we're not interested in it. Snapdragon, very, very profitable. 7k plus for that herb, take it out. And again onto Qualm, which is also an important herb used for super strength, giving it a higher value. Then we have Avanto. Now this again is one of the top herbs that people sometimes buy, but we're not interested in because it is not worth quite as much as we're paying. Irit, exactly the same, again worth less than we're paying. Cadantine, once again, very, very cheap. And then of course we have Ranars, just like Snapdragon, well worth taking out. So what I've now done is I have one noted unit of each of the valuable units, and we're avoiding the rest. Then what we need to do, after we've got some cash, I completely forgot that, there we go, is we need to fill our inventory, and it needs to be something that isn't herbs. So in my case, I'm just going to grab some vials, and this now means that when I get a trade, and I'll give you an example in a second, I know which herbs I'm getting. Okay, so I've managed to find a person willing to do this at one note at a time. So first of all, he's put up a stack of 6, and realistically I've seen his entire stack. I would expect this to be a weak herb because this is one of his bigger stacks. It could also be Ranars, because especially if he's been through it is quite a common drop. But we'll have a see. If it lets us accept, it is one of these stronger herbs. So, this is a good herb, and that was most likely, actually it was Toadflax oddly enough, but it is a herb that we are after. Here, I'll now put another stack up, and I'm going to offer 1k each again. And this time we'll see if it lets us accept. So, this herb is not one we're after. This is a cheap herb. We don't want this one. Get him to change stack. And just repeat this again and again. And this is what the buyer is trying to do to you. Right, I'm just going to move on to the final important point to know with units. And this is when you, particularly using some of the systems like Zybus, focusing on buying one herb to train, most likely with Ranars, you're trying to buy a mass amount of a good herb. So, we're going to withdraw one Ranar and one of the unit, and this way we know whatever they trade is going to be good by filling our inventory up. Once again, it's exactly the same as our previous example. Now when they trade, whatever herb they trade is going to go here or here. A lot of people will try and trade the herb as a unit. They'll claim it's just grimy, and to be honest, for the large part it is the grimy version of the herb, because that's how herb buyers like myself are getting the herbs we're after. However, if they were to trade you a weaker herb and disguise it as a runner, so they're trying to scam you, it is very easy to get tricked into it if you are not aware of what we're doing. By filling our inventory, we're keeping ourselves safe. We know we are not getting the weak. Okay, so just to finish, I'm going to run over our important points just as a quick reminder. So, number one, when you are buying a mass amount of units, make sure it is a mass amount of units. You want to be getting a lot of different stacks, and you want these to be similar size stacks. If one is much, much bigger, you're going to be getting yourself ripped off. Number two, when we are buying units one stack at a time, we need to fill our inventory with known strong herbs and the rest with another item that is not a herb. This way, when we're buying them, we know we are getting the units we are after. And finally, number three, as you are buying the units, if you are trying to buy them individually, much like the rest, get a known stack of each unit that you're after. So if you're only after Ranars, get a Ranar clean, get a Ranar grimy, fill the rest of the inventory, and we know we can't get scammed. Now obviously, feel free to be on the buyer end of this, preferably not in a scamming way. It's a little sketchy for the community, but it's not exactly a scam to buy herbs one stack at a time. It is just your understanding of the units. There is a lot of money to be had. I have probably made, getting up to 85 herblers so I can ID the rest and make most of the pots, quite a few million off this, but it's well worth understanding even if you're not interested in the money, just to keep yourself from getting ripped off. I hope you've all found the guide very useful. I will be producing more like this quite soon. I'll probably be producing one on some of the very, very common scams in 07scape just to keep yourselves protected, and I do have a couple more bot killing guides coming out soon. As said, I hope you've all enjoyed this and enjoy the future.